Welcome to this explainer. It's early August 2026, and we are quite literally seeing the absolute limits of extreme weather pushed across the United States. We aren't just looking at a hot day here or a rainy day there anymore. We're analyzing a massive, interconnected system of atmospheric events that are seriously testing the resilience of communities from coast to coast. Here is the roadmap for what we'll be covering today. First, a nation under extreme weather. Second, historic heat domes expanding. Third, torrential rain and flooding. And finally, the record-breaking Oregon wildfires. All right, let's dive into part one, a nation under extreme weather, and specifically the compounding hazards of August 2026. So the overarching theme we're seeing right now is something called a compounding atmospheric hazard. This isn't just an isolated event happening in one town. It's really this massive, interwoven web of intense natural forces that are testing the entire country simultaneously. An event in the Pacific Northwest is actively altering the daily reality for someone living all the way over in Florida. Let's break down how this actually builds. Moving on to part two, historic heat domes expanding and how they are baking the West and South. 125 degrees. Wow. It is almost hard to wrap your head around that level of heat, right? But that is the actual projected peak for Death Valley this Saturday. Meanwhile, major population centers, places like Phoenix and Las Vegas, are forecast to approach 115 to 120 degrees at the absolute height of this event. Meteorologists are literally calling this one of the most dangerous heat events on record for the desert Southwest. Now, what makes this heat so deadly is precisely that it's inescapable. When morning lows in Phoenix stall out in the low 90s, your body gets absolutely zero overnight recovery. And we're already seeing the tragic results of this. Maricopa County has recorded 40 confirmed heat-related deaths just so far in 2026. Over in California, the Central Valley is essentially trapped between 100 and 110 degrees under extreme heat warnings. Down in Texas, temperatures will briefly dip to the low 90s before those triple digits come roaring right back midweek. Oh, and it gets incredibly complex on the coast. You might think, hey, let's head to the beach in Southern California to escape the 100-degree inland heat. But if you do that, you're walking straight into 4 to 8 foot surf with 9 foot sets, all fueled by Tropical Storm Genevieve. So you try to escape one hazard, only to step directly into another. And this exact same upper-level, high-pressure system is pushing near-record heat all the way up into the Rockies and High Plains. Boise, Denver, and Salt Lake City are all topping that 100-degree mark. When you combine those extreme temperatures with gusty winds and low humidity, well, you get a perfect recipe for extreme fire weather in areas that are, unfortunately, already heavily stressed by drought. That brings us to part three, torrential rain and flooding hitting the saturated East and Midwest. So why exactly is the flooding so bad right now in the East? It really comes down to something meteorologists call legacy moisture. Coastal North Carolina, which already saw 5 inches of rain, and Florida's Big Bend have been absolutely soaked by post-tropical Bertha. The ground is literally acting like a sponge that is completely full. So when these new daily storm cycles roll in, things like slow-moving thunderstorm clusters, sea breeze patterns, and advancing cold fronts, that fresh rainfall has absolutely nowhere to go. Even normally manageable rainfall amounts instantly become rapid, heavy runoff, and an immediate flash flood risk. And depending on where you live, the threat looks entirely different. Up in the Northeast, places like New York, Philadelphia, Hartford, they are facing 1 to 5 inches of rain and serious flash floods. Move down to the Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas, around Baltimore, Washington, or Raleigh, and the primary threat shifts to damaging winds, hail, and even isolated tornadoes. Then, down in the Southeast and Gulf Coast, cities like Nashville, Birmingham, Mobile, and Jackson, they're trapped under heavy rain combined with oppressive heat. That means communities are facing elevated heat stress that lingers long after those intense squalls actually pass by. Right in the middle of the country, a severe threat is targeting the Midwest. Step one, we're seeing a massive squall line reorganizing after pushing through Chicago. Step two, a mid-level trough is amplifying over the lower Ohio and lower Mississippi valleys. And finally, step three, a surface low develops near the Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky tri-state area by Sunday morning. This precise step-by-step setup puts major metro areas like Cleveland and Cincinnati directly in the crosshairs for some really damaging winds and large hail. Now let's look at part four, record-breaking Oregon wildfires, which have truly become a national emergency. 1.7 million acres. Take a second to process that. That is the massive, devastating footprint of the 46 active wildfires currently burning across Oregon as of early August. This inferno is being relentlessly driven by 90-degree heat, wind gusts topping 30 miles per hour, and relative humidity hovering down in the single digits. It is, quite literally, a perfect storm for extreme fire behavior. With 1.7 million acres burned so far in 2026, Oregon is rapidly closing in on its devastating 2024 all-time record of 1.93 million acres. They only have a 230,000-acre buffer left. A massive driver of this current total is the Big Grass Fire in Malheur County, which has already consumed over 303,000 acres, spread across state lines into Idaho, and is currently sitting at a mere 21% containment. Because of all this, Oregon is currently sitting at a national preparedness level 5 of 5. This is the maximum possible level, meaning every available firefighting resource is completely tapped out. On the administrative side, Governor Tina Kotek requested federal firefighting assistance grants. The Trump administration has approved some of these requests, but has denied others for 2 of the state's most significant fires. So you can see this intense resource strain playing out in real time. And this brings us right back full circle to the concept that defines this entire crisis: a compounding hazard network. This is essentially a scenario where localized extreme weather events create secondary impacts across vast geographic distances. For example, the extreme heat in the West fuels historic wildfires in Oregon. Those fires produce a massive smoke plume. That plume then gets caught by upper-level winds, drifts east across the plains, reduces air quality, and casts a literal haze all the way down to the flooded, storm-battered coast of Florida. Every single extreme is directly interacting with the others. So with extreme heat, historic fires, and relentless floods compounding from coast to coast, are our current infrastructure and emergency resources prepared for this new national baseline? We are no longer dealing with isolated weather anomalies, right? We're dealing with an intertwined coast-to-coast network of extremes that pushes our systems to the absolute brink. If this compounding hazard network is our new national baseline, how must our cities, our emergency responses, and our daily lives evolve to survive it? I want you to leave this explainer really pondering that exact question. Keep looking at the big picture, and we'll see you next time.